Welcome, Bronco Nation, my post-game review. Boise State versus UT Martin. Boise State winning this game 30-7. So not a convincing win in the way you would like to see against FCS team. And last time Boise State played this team, I think I said that they beat them by 70, right? Or 63-14. So it wasn't that, but it was still a 30-7 win. It was a game that was rarely in doubt once you got past the second half. A little closer than it probably should have been there in the first quarter. Trending in the second. Boise State put up some nice points there in the second quarter to kind of put this one beyond worry, beyond concern, and then be able to put some points there in the second half to put this game up 30-7 and get that win. We're going to go through the offense, defense, special teams. We're going to grade each of the performances of those units. Little ad hoc today, because I was at the game. I was finally at the game. We had 36,000 fans in attendance, including myself, for this game. It was a fantastic environment. Honestly, being able to be home here at Boise, it has been too long. The last game I was able to, at home, that I was able to attend in person was in 2016 versus UNLV. I attended a lot of road games that were near where I was stationed, but this is the first time I've been able to come up for a game. So this was fantastic. I'm so glad my schedule worked out to be able to fly up for this one, and it was definitely well worth it because it was amazing being back in the best city in the country, Boise, Idaho. All of you Bronco Nation, so all the photos throughout the video, all of you were so welcoming. It was fantastic to be back here again, like I've already said. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Make sure you watch all the way in to the end of this video because I got a little special tribute there to Bronco Nation, thanking you all for being part of this and kind of a little something special at the end. So make sure you watch the end of this video. I'm really excited about the end of this video. Well, without further ado, let's just get right into it then, because like I said, a little ad hoc today. I was in the stands, so not a lot of notes. I didn't take any notes during the games because I was yelling my voice out, trying to get Boise State's defense pumped up, and they played great. That's something we'll talk about. Trying to get that offense pumped up, which didn't necessarily play quite as well. And again, we'll talk about that here in the video. So not as many notes. This is just some notes I wrote down for the stats of the players here. So it's going to be a little bit more wave-toppy than usual. I've always said I want to do that this season, keep the videos under 30 minutes. We're going to be very, very kind of overall reflection because I don't have the exact notes that I would usually take during the game about what happened here and what happened when. So we're going to kind of do an overall impression. So starting off overall impression here with the offense. Offense overall, going to give them a C+. Grade right off the bat. Obviously, 327 yards total offense. Not a terrible performance by this offense. And the C+ grade is probably harsher than it should be if this wasn't an FCS team. If this was an FBS team that Boise State had come in and played against, even if it was a mid to lower tier FBS team, this would be, acceptable. 327 yards, 204 yards passing, 123 yards rushing. But this is an FCS opponent, UT Martin. The defense was dominant and is what allowed Boise State to get what you might call dominant crushing win here, 30-7. Obviously, that's a big margin of victory, but it was only so big because the defense came out and shut UT Martin down throughout the game. Boise State's offense failed to capitalize on several opportunities, and it looked competitive at the offensive level for Boise State. Defensive level did not look competitive. Boise State definitely looked the superior team at the defensive level, but the offensive level, for far too long in this game, it looked competitive there, where Boise State obviously opening up some holes in the running game, 123 yards, so they were able to get some things done. But this should have been 150-plus, 200-plus yard rushing game because Boise State offensive line was not dominating the trenches. A little more time for Hank Bachmeier. Yeah, they were giving some more time for Hank Bachmeier, but still only 204 yards passing against, again, UT Martin. Now, considering that Hank Bachmeier only had 200 yards passing in the two previous games coming into this is definitely a step going forward. It's the most passing yards he has so far in the season, but there's still a lot of work to be done on this offense. Now, having kind of talked overall about some of the difficulties here for the offense, inability to control the line up front, inability to give effective blocking for the running game, especially 123 yards. A lot of that's after contact. Genty and Holney both having to fight off multiple tacklers most of the game to be able to make yards up the field. So definitely a game that the offensive line was not dominant. The wide receivers, Hank Bachmeier, 18 of 25 for 204 yards. A lot of that was just because the wide receivers weren't open. I mean, it wasn't. Part of it was the play calling. Part of it was Hank Bachmeier. It's kind of been the trend this season. But a big part of it also was the wide receivers weren't open. Maybe that goes back to the simplicity of the route tree and just not calling complex routes enough to get these guys open. Maybe it goes to the experience level of the wide receivers. Some new guys coming in this year, obviously losing 3 vets last year. But the defense for UT Martin was really, for the most part, covering up these wide receivers. Now, there was a lot of missed opportunities here by Hank Bachmeier. At least 2 throws that were not on mark, were totally off, overthrows. He had a slant route to Cobbs, a deep, shallow slant that should have been like a 20-plus yard pass, overthrew him. And he had another long throw, probably about a 25, 30, probably 30-yarder. That was a deep out. And he had his guy beat, and again, overthrew him. And then there was a third pass as well that there was some miscommunication, threw it in the wrong place. Or maybe our receiver was in the wrong place. We don't know exactly what happened there. But Hank Bachmeier definitely continuing to struggle here. Now, I will say this. In the stands, getting to experience the fans, which was awesome. I loved that. I loved getting to be part of Bronco Nation, be part of this discussion, finally getting to be part of the fan experience, which I've been missing for so long. It was a homecoming. It was an energy revival. It was everything I needed. It was amazing. But something I really didn't like was that every time Hank Bachmeier made any mistake, even small stuff, doesn't throw the ball away in time, it takes a sack. He didn't do anything terrible in this game. Had a forced fumble, which, again, I think was more on the play call, which I'll talk about here in a second. I don't want to get too sidetracked. But even the small things, anytime you made a mistake, everybody around me, you could hear it throughout the stadium. And it wasn't like an audible booing, but it was an audible, oh, man, he needs to get out of there. Bench him. He sucks. Oh, my gosh. Why is he, take him out of the game. And people, you could hear that around. It wasn't just, especially when he fumbled the ball, but just small things. It was a fan base that you could tell is tired of what they've seen on the field so far for Boise State, and they are looking for Hank Bachmeier to fail. Not rooting for him, but they are looking and expecting him to fail. They have no confidence in him, and when he does fail, well, then it's just there's no buffer zone. It's just reaction right into it. And when Taylor Green came on in the fourth quarter, about 6 minutes left, and Bachmeier gets hurt, doesn't look like it's going to keep him out of any games, but he got hit pretty hard, wind knocked out of him, came out. Taylor Green comes on, the stadium erupted in applause. So you know that the fan base wants Taylor Green, and I've got to address that right now. Because Taylor Green has shown some great things in his athleticism, but he does not have the accuracy, specifically in the ball placement, obviously, but he doesn't have the accuracy, maybe the arm strength. I mean, he had some deep balls, but they weren't on target. So he definitely doesn't have the awareness and the accuracy right now, at least, to be the quarterback that can take Boise State to a Mountain West Conference championship for sure. Not saying necessarily that Hank can do that when we don't know yet from what we've seen, but definitely not Taylor right now. And I think that we would struggle to get even to bowl eligibility right now, especially what we saw from the Oregon State game with Taylor Green. He is raw. He is an incredible athlete. He is going to be Boise State's quarterback in the future. He and Genty are the future of this program. Next year, if assuming Helani and Bachmeier leave next year, the year afterwards, they are going to be the faces of this program, and an experienced, developed Taylor Green and Genty, who already looks good to go, are going to be dominant and incredible and exciting. But they're not ready to go right now. And it doesn't make sense to be rooting against almost your starting quarterback, to be wanting Hank Bachmeier out of the game when there's not an option that can replace him at the same level. When Jalen Henderson was here, it was a little bit different. Because Jalen Henderson, he was that quarterback that could come in right away at the same level or better and get Boise State to a Mountain West Championship game, win a Mountain West Championship game. Jalen Henderson was that guy. We don't have that guy on the sideline right now. Taylor Green can be that guy. He will be that guy, but he isn't right now. If Boise State wants to sacrifice this year to build for next season, it would be beneficial to Taylor Green to play the rest of the season. He'd come into next year looking great. But Boise State would sacrifice this year. Mountain Championship, definitely off the table. Bowl eligibility, or getting to competitive bowl, a good bowl, getting +7 wins, that could be off the table too. Because some of these Mountain West teams are going to be hard to beat. They're going to be hard to beat with the team Boise State's got right together right now, the way they're playing so far. But they're going to be hard to beat if you got Taylor Green, inexperienced freshman, not true freshman, but inexperienced freshman, who's still building himself and developing his skills. It's going to be tough to beat. Hank Bachmeier, it's ride or die with Hank Bachmeier if we want to play for this season. If we want to play for next season, that's another conversation. But I don't think we're at the point yet in the year where you go, this season's a bust. Let's just start building for the next year. Hank Bachmeier's the guy. And the thing that is going to hurt him the most out of everything is a fan base that doesn't support him. If you got fans in the stands that don't have his back, if you got fans that are actively rooting for him to be taken out of the game before he's even stepped onto the field, if you have fans that are tired of him playing and making mistakes, you can be tired of making mistakes, but if you have fans that are expressing basically disappointment before he's even made a snap, that is just going to continue to compound the issues with Bachmeier. Bachmeier's best chance for success is to be able to get his mojo back. He's shown he's got abilities. He's had great plays. He's had great games. When he's confident, he can make amazing plays. That a highlight reel, get on SportsCenter level plays, and he can play at that level. But he has to find his confidence. He has to develop rhythm with his wide receivers. He has to focus on everything, all the simple things that are happening on the field. And the last thing he needs is a distraction of a fan base that he knows isn't behind him. So Bronco Nation, if we want, and I'm just saying this from having been able to come to a game and experience it, if I'm feeling it, you can bet the players on the field are feeling it. Hank Bachmeier knows what the impression of him right now is in Bronco Nation. If you want to see Hank Bachmeier have success and Boise State's hopes and dreams for this year, love it, take it or leave it, love it or like it, or love it or hate it, they ride on Hank Bachmeier. His level of success will define Boise State's level of success this year. So he needs that fan base behind him. So I'm begging you, Bronco Nation, don't be sitting in the stands audibly wishing that he was out of the game, because Taylor Green, he's going to be super excited to watch in the future, but his day is not now. We need Hank Bachmeier. He's the only guy right now on this team in that quarterback room who can get Boise State to the level of success that fans hope and dream that they can get to this year. Now, having talked about that, they're not at that level right now offensively. They're at C+ overall. Tim Plow, a better game, compared to, and the bar is not high right now in the season from what we've seen the first two games, but a better game. Boise State was not running it up the middle every single play. They had outside runs, a lot of outside runs. In fact, I'd say overall, at least from watching, from being there in the stadium, it looked like they were running outside more than they were running inside, and it was intentional. They were really trying to stretch the boundary, which is a focus that I talked about in my keys to the game. So they were trying to do that. They weren't just trying to throw with a deep ball every play. They were working the short game. They were working the mid-range game. They were trying to get their tight ends involved, all their tight ends. Tyler Hopper had a great game. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about a little more when I get to the keys to the game. So Boise State was really trying to focus on being more creative and not just run up the middle and throw the ball deep. So they were definitely moving in the right direction, but they still weren't doing it effectively. The offensive line, you've got every single guy back on the offensive line, a bunch of sixth-year players on there, and we look like a first-year unit. I've never seen an offensive line that has so much experience play so poorly for Boise State or really any school. So that is the biggest issue right now for Boise State is the offensive line. But the play calling was better. It was not good yet, but it was better. The problem is that we've only got one more game before Boise State hits the rock wall of the conference schedule. I mean, it is an absolute grind starting with San Diego State. So this looked like it kind of shake the rust off. Boise State finally started to look like they were starting to find themselves. But you don't want to be at that point, third game of the season. If this was a first game of the season type of performance, this was UT Martin was the home opener and season opener, it'd be a little bit of different experience. It'd probably be a little bit of higher grade than C+. Be like, okay, that's all right. They were shaking off some rust. They looked fine. This is the third game. Boise State's got one more game before it is go time. They have got to figure themselves out completely at UT Martin at UTEP next week. and be ready to go for San Diego State, because San Diego State is not going to allow you to keep punting the ball, to keep missing opportunities, to keep overthrowing wide receivers, to keep not being able to dominate the line of scrimmage. They're not going to allow you to keep doing that. And Boise State is in for a rough set of conference games if they can't figure things out next week versus UTEP. We'll preview that more next week. So overall offense, giving it a C+. Halani over 100 yards, which is great. He looked a lot better this game, looked a lot more explosive, playing with a lot more energy, which is something we really haven't seen as much out of him this first 2 games. I mean, a lot of the issues were not his fault. Offensive line not blocking guys well, but we also saw Halani not playing with as much passion and energy. And I'm sure it's not something intentional. I'm sure he was playing with all the passion and energy he could bring. But he seemed to be more explosive this game. He seemed to be playing with a lot more want and desire. And a lot of that, I think, was because of the special teams. We'll talk about that here in a second. But he seemed to be playing better. He had a 110-yard game. Caples led the wide receivers with 4 receptions, 48 yards. And Hank Bachmeier, 204 yards passing. So C+ grade for the offense. Moving on to defense. Defense, B+. Great performance by the defense. The reason I'm giving them a B+, even though they did a great job overall, right? 126 yards passing only allowed, 26 yards rushing allowed, 152 overall against an offense that was performing well, FCS level, but performing well, over 600 yards passing for their quarterback coming into this game, 2 running backs with over 100 yards rushing. So this was a team that was performing well coming into this game. Boise State shut them down, and that defensive line looked incredible. If there's a unit on this team that I have no concerns about, it's the defensive line. They look dominant. Issues in the secondary. Continued to have issues in the secondary. Obviously, deep ball allowed by Biggers, which was a surprise because he hasn't really been so much of a concern so far this season. But Biggers allowing a deep pass on a 4th down, a touchdown pass, deep ball. That was obviously, like I said, a touchdown. So opportunities allowed in the secondary that good quarterbacks that Boise State will be coming up to play here will exploit. Fresno State will take advantage of those opportunities just like Oregon State did if Boise State can't shut that down. So Boise State has continued to show issues, struggled against Oregon State, showed some opportunities against New Mexico that New Mexico was not able to capitalize on because the level of players. Well, same kind of thing here. Wide receivers were wide open, especially on the shorter stuff. I mean, you had guys who were pretty much just guaranteed 5 or 6 yards, at least for the first half, before they started to shut it down a little bit more in the second half. But Boise State was really, they were big enough and fast enough to make up for their errors. I mean, they made the 5-yard pass, but then the reception, but then they were tackled, a couple of steps later. But the reception was there, and UT Martin converted a lot more plays than they did. And I'm probably being overly harsh on this defense, especially when you look at statistically overall what they did. But it's an FCS team. It's an FCS team. You expect them to come in and be dominant against an FCS team. And I saw trends here, which is why the B+. It's still a good grade. But why they're not getting an A is because there were some opportunities there, again, in the secondary mostly, but also no sacks. Only 1 sack, so not getting effective pressure on the quarterback to get him down. 6 quarterback hurries. So they were definitely forcing him to get the ball off quickly, but not getting to the quarterback, which has been a little bit of a trend this year. Got to New Mexico. I think they had 5 sacks against New Mexico, but no sacks against Oregon State. Only 1 sack here against UT Martin, FCS school. Boise State's got great pass rushers. You got Matlock, who was a sack leader last year. You got Vanya. You've got Demetrius Washington. You've got the Greek freak George Tarlas, and only 1 sack in this game. So Boise State, that's not a good sign. And it wasn't like UT Martin was just running the quarterback every play, and that's why they weren't sacking. No, he was in the pocket. So Boise State couldn't get to him and sack him. So the B+ is for that. The run defense, the line play was great. It was great seeing JL Skinner back. It was great seeing Tyreek LaBeouf out there in the secondary. I think that was a boost for them. And obviously only allowed a couple of big plays, that one over the top for the touchdown. But there are some items there that Boise State definitely needs to clean up. All right, special teams here, and then we'll quickly review 3 keys to the game, and then the most exciting part of this video, which I've saved for the end. So special teams, A+. We've gone C+ offense, B+ defense, A+ for the special teams. What a day for the special teams. Jonah Dalmez, who struggled to start the season. I mean, this is a great kicker. He was very surprising. He's on a bunch of award watch lists. He's top in the Mountain West. He struggled first game against Oregon State, missed 2 field goals. And then New Mexico came in, made his 1 field goal, so he's starting to develop the mojo. Well, I think the mojo's back because he looked great today, made all 3 of his field goals, including 1 from a long of 48 yards. On the field, he called it 49, but ESPN's marking it as 48, so we'll call it 48. But a long field goal, straight and true. He looked great. All of his field goals were from pretty decent distance, and they all look pretty straight and true. He was playing great today. So he had a great day. It looks like Jonah Dalmas is back in rhythm. He's back. He might not miss another field goal. He might not miss another field goal the rest of the season. It's great to see him playing well. James Ferguson, Aussie punter, really excited about him. Tyler Rausa and I, when we previewed the special teams at the beginning of the year, we were both really excited about him coming in here, the Aussie punter. You love to see the Aussie punters. They're usually very accurate because of the Aussie rules football that they're used to playing. They're usually very accurate. He's got great legs. And he wasn't what we thought he would be against Oregon State. A little bit of a disappointment. I would say not a good game against Oregon State. New Mexico, better. He looks okay, but looks better. Doesn't look great. Today, he looked great. He looked really good. 4 punts, 45.3 yard average, 3 of those punts inside the 20. I believe, at least from watching from the sidelines, it looked like, or from the stands, it looked like 3 of those punts were inside the 10. He was rolling them out of bounds at the 10, inside the 10, 5-7 yard line. They were perfect punts by Ferguson. And that's what I expected to see. I think that's what we're going to see coming in. It took him a little while to kind of figure things out here, but he looks great. So while the offense is still figuring itself out, the secondary is still figuring itself out, the defensive line has figured itself out, and special teams looks like it has figured itself out. And I think we're going to have a good season the rest of the way for the special teams unit. Talking about figuring itself out, return game has not been great for Boise State. There's been issues. Cobbs, he was the main punt returner for Boise State. I called him out in the last video for some decisions, letting balls roll past him versus trying to go up and get those, which gave extra yards, and then going back to get punts inside of the 10, which would probably roll back into the end zone if he'd let them go, and then some dangerous receptions. So there'd been some issues with Stephon Cobbs. Well, they put Halani in for punt returns, and I loved that decision. So you can see my voice is kind of starting to go from yelling all game. But Halani looked great in the punt return game. Halani had 5 punt returns for 69 yards overall and 13.8 yard average per punt return, a long of 20. Every time he got the ball, he was getting some yards. I mean, a couple of times it was only like 6 or 7, but he was making an impact. He caught the ball every time. He made good decisions. And he only fair caught it once, and it was a good decision to do that. It was like the 12-yard line. He looked great in the punt return, and I think it sparked him on offense because it gave him a chance to get out in the open field, to make some moves, to find that rhythm, to get that confidence. We talked about confidence needing for Bachmeier. Well, Halani needs it too. Everyone, especially 2 key positions, they run off of the energy that they have, that they're sensing, the confidence, the more confident they get. It's just subconscious stuff. The more confident that you are, those 2 positions, the harder you're going to run, the more explosive you're going to be, the quicker you're going to be. And he was able to develop some timing during those punt returns, getting in the open field, making some moves. He looked good out there, and I think it translated onto the field. I loved seeing, especially when you have Genty out there, who if he has a long punt return, if Halani has a long punt return, he gets tired, you can throw Genty out there, and he's going to keep going at the same level that Halani is. You're not going to have much of a drop-off there. I love putting your best open field guy, Halani, at the punt return. And the kick return was great, too. Cole Wright, 2 kick returns, 58 yards, average 29 yards. So A+ performance overall. 24 minutes here, so we're going to wrap up real fast. Overall grades for keys to the game. So offense was C+, defense was B+, special teams A+. Keys to the game here. Find your playmakers. I'm going to give this a solid A. I called out needing to find Talon Hopper. Hadn't been targeted, hadn't been thrown to the entire time. He had 2 receptions for 27 yards. Dropped a touchdown. He had a touchdown in his hands in the end zone. between two defenders. He was jumping. That was actually a pretty good ball by Bachmeier. Hit him in the hands. He dropped the touchdown. But he's rusty. He hasn't seen the field for 2 games. Keep getting him in there. Keep giving those opportunities. He'll be fine. He'll keep making great plays. This really his only big mistake of the day. Otherwise than that, like I said, 2 receptions for 27 yards. First, the second play of the game, the first pass in the game was Tyler Hopner, and he is a guy that we need to get more involved because he is huge. He is a playmaker. He is a guy that is one of the best. And we talk about drop the pass. Just forget about that. I'm sure he's already moved forward. But he is one of the best receiving players on this team. He can make moves in the open field, which is weird for a big guy, but he can make some speed moves. He had a great pass that he was able to keep running outside and almost scored a touchdown on. So he is a player who can get you yards after contact, and he's a reliable passing threat, especially for Bachmeier, who's looking for easy passes. Those to the tight end, you don't get easier than that. Maybe a check down to a running back, but you don't get much easier than a nice, short, easy pass to the tight end, especially a guy like Hopper who can get down the field and make plays for you. So I love seeing Hopper out there. Davis Cutter, he caught a pass, hadn't been targeted at all the entire season, first 2 games. He got out there, had 1 reception, 26 yards. It was a great reception on a crossing to the boundary. And then Tyreek LaBeouf got him out on defense. Boise State just did a great job putting Helani in special teams to be able to kickstart him and find a way to use him. Finding your playmakers. Boise State found a way to get guys who hadn't found that spark, hadn't been involved that much yet, to find a way to get them into the game. Second year, find a normal offense. For this one, it was definitely an improvement. It didn't look like the same robotic offense where you were running up the middle, throw it deep, running up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle, throw it deep. There was some normalcy between the 20s where Boise State was actually trying to work some creativity into their offensive scheme and not just waiting until they got to the end zone to draw up great plays like the Latrell Caples pitch play against New Mexico. They weren't just waiting to get into certain situations. You could really tell that Tim Plow was trying to throw some trickeration. No, I'm not trickeration because that means something different here. But was really trying to throw some creativity into this offense. Runs outside, shifts, some short passes, some mid-range stuff. Really trying to throw some creativity and some different things out here so that Boise State looked like they were trying to not just go out there and hope that they could beat them on a deep route or beat them up in front. They were trying to give the defense something different to look at and calling allowing themselves to play against what the defense gave them. Now, again, whether they did that effectively or not, the stats say that they didn't do that quite as effectively as they could have. Offensive line wasn't blocking quite as well as they should have, and the wide receivers weren't open when they needed to be. So Boise State, I think, was a little bit of a inability to go out and perform, but Tim Plow definitely trying to head in the right direction here. Now he needs to look at the strengths of his playmakers, strength of his receivers, strength of his offensive line, strength of his running backs. Look at the guys he's got on the field and call up some plays that allow them to perform to their strengths. And I think that's the issue right now is he's still trying to develop versus a little bit, it was a cookie cutter this game, definitely moving into a little bit more creativity, but Boise State still not being able to go out and execute that right now, and that's still on the offensive coordinator just as much as it's on the players to go out and call an offense that Boise State is actually able to go out and perform effectively. But I'll give that a B+ because it was definitely a move in the right direction here by Tim Plow. Find your offensive identity. Boise State, I said, you got to find out. You want to be balanced, you want to be run heavy, you want to be pass heavy. Because it was almost like the last few games we've been trying to be pass heavy and run heavy without actually trying to have any creativity in the run game, without trying to find stuff in the middle of the field, or try to throw some short passes. Boise State, it looked like they were just trying to go out there and do 2 things at one time. Well, Boise State now, they looked like they were focusing on that balanced attack. They were using the running game to try and set up the passing game, trying to extend things over the outside so that they could focus on. They were using the running backs in the passing game. So what they were doing is they were running to the outside to spread the defense, and then they were doing these little tiny button hook routes by the running backs where they were basically almost extended draw plays where you go out like they're going to pass and then the running back runs up here in front of the quarterback and he just pitches it forward a couple of yards and the running back takes off, and that worked effectively. I mean, Helani, like I said, Alani had 4 receptions for 47 yards in this game, and that was the middle of the field stuff because they were stretched out to the outside from the previous run plays and the focus on the perimeter in the passing game. They gave them opportunities to throw it to the tight end to Hopper in the middle, to throw it to Alani in the middle. So Boise State was actually trying to use the run to set up the pass and the pass to set up the run game, which is not something we've seen in the first 2 games. Again, was it effective? It was not as effective as it could have been, and like we said, C+ overall for the offense. But Boise State definitely attempting to start using the run to set up the pass and the pass to set up the run, what you need from a balanced attack. So I think I'm going to find your offensive identity, and even though the execution of that was not necessarily what it should have been, Boise State definitely identifying themselves as a balanced attack team and now starting to work towards that. Now we need to keep seeing that. We need to take steps forward against UTEP. We need to start seeing the play calling actually being executed effectively, and Tim Plow working and saying, all right, that didn't work. We need to change up our scheme here a little bit and run something else and adapt into the defense, because he's still not showing that he can do that right now. He's still not showing that he can look at what the defense is giving him and draw up plays in the moment, grab something from his bag and throw something in that he knows is going to work against the defense that they're presenting him. He still doesn't, it still looks almost like he's kind of calling his offense regardless of what the defense is actually doing so far, because Boise State is continuing to run things that aren't working. They're continuing to not find success consistently throughout the game. So Boise State definitely needing to continue to find themselves. Like I said, they looked like they were starting to find themselves in this game. Boise State needs to find themselves in the next game and develop that consistency against UTEP. But thanks so much for listening to me today, Bronco Nation. This was a great day. I got to meet so many Boise State fans. You've seen the photos throughout. I got to meet up with so many friends that I've met and collaborated with over the years. Got to talk and do an interview at the beginning of the day with a master of football, and then BJ Rains. I got to meet up and talk with Ron Count. It wasn't an interview. We just had coffee. So it was just a great day of meeting all of you and getting to have just an absolute blast at a Boise State home game. This has been a great day. Return to the blue, for the blue, brought my blue turf. This is just a great day overall, and it will definitely go down in my memory banks as just one of the best experiences that I've had in a long time. So thank you so much for that. I would usually close these videos out with my traditional slogan sign off here, but I'm going to let you guys do it, Bronco Nation. Thanks so much.
Go Big Blue! 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 Go Big Blue!